Muted, is that me? Right, welcome to this afternoon's Kabbalat Shabbat and Shabbat Shalom to everyone. It's a nice sunny day again. And here we go. We're going to start today with a Devar Torah from Morris. So welcome, Morris. Unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted, I believe, but there we go. Lots of people coming in now. As we approach Purim, there are lots to talk about on this evening's topic, as well as lots of anomalies. The story in the Megillah, Esther, is briefly as follows. Haman was the royal advisor of the Persian king Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes I or Artaxerxes I. His plans to annihilate the Jews were foiled by Mordecai of the tribe of Benjamin. Esther, Mordecai's cousin and adopted daughter, who had become queen of Persia after her marriage to Ahasuerus, exposed the plot, and the day of deliverance became a day of feasting and rejoicing amongst Jews. Or in other words, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. According to the Megillah Esther, they should make them days of feasting and gladness, and sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor. Purim is celebrated by exchanging gifts of food, Mishleach Manot, donating charity to the poor, Matnot LaEvoyim, eating a celebratory meal with alcoholic beverages, good move, Sudat Purim or Mishtech, public recitation of the Megillah or its reading in synagogue, the contribution of half a shekel to the temple, Machazit HaShekel, additions to the daily prayers and grace after meals, Al Hanisim. Other customs include wearing masks and costumes, public celebrations and praises, and of course, since this is a festival, food is involved. Purim is celebrated annually on the 14th of Adar, following the victory of the Jews over their enemies on the 13th of Adar, which is the fast of Esther, unless Purim falls on Shabbat or a Sunday, in which case it is moved to either 2 or 3 days earlier on the preceding Thursday, as this year. We only keep 1 day for the fast, not the 3 days as stated in the Megillah, although there are some who do fast for a single day for the 3 weeks prior to Purim. This is not the only anomaly that is associated with Purim. For instance, why do we fast just before the festival when the time of the fast was initiated? It was held in Nisan, 11 months before the month of Adar, when the deliverance of Purim took place. We fasted on Nisan. If we fasted on Nisan, it would have no relevance to the festival. Today, our fast is symbolic of that undertaken by Esther. In cities that were protected by a surrounding wall at the time of Joshua, Purim is celebrated on the 15th of the month of Adar, in what is known as Shushan Purim, since fighting in the walled city of Shushan continued through the 14th day of Adar. Today, only in Jerusalem is Purim observed on the 15th, but in several other biblical settlements, such as Hebron and Shiloh, it is celebrated on both days because of doubts regarding their status as cities surrounded by a wall since the days of Joshua. Shushan, currently known as Susa and located in Iran, however, is an unwalled city that celebrates on the 15th of Adar. Why do we disguise ourselves in Purim? The rabbis find an allusion to Esther in Torah, playing on the words V'anoki ha'Esther atir panai, and I shall surely hide my face. The rabbis take Astir to allude to Esther, which is spelled and almost sounds the same, since Astir, I will hide, is taken to be a hidden reference to Esther. We disguise ourselves. Haman was descended from Amalek, who in turn was descended from Esau, from whom the hatred of Jacob's descendants originated as a result of Jacob, having disguised himself as Esau, stole his father's blessing destined for the firstborn, Esau. By disguising ourselves on Purim, we show that our belief in Jacob was right to disguise himself, and the victory over Haman shows that the action was correct and approved by Hashem. The Megillah Esther narration takes place over a 9-year period. Fortunately, the reading takes a lot less, and begins with a 6-month drinking feast given by King Ahasuerus for the army, the media, and the satraps, and the princes of 127 provinces of his kingdom, concluding with a 7-day drinking feast for the inhabitants of Shushan, rich and poor, and separate drinking feasts for the women organized by Queen Vashti in the pavilion of the royal courtyard. And so it goes on. The primary source relating to the origin of Purim is, of course, the Megillah Esther, which became the last of the 24 books to be canonized by the sages of the Great Assembly. It's dated to the 4th century BCE, and according to Talmud, was a redaction by the General Assembly of the original text by Mordecai. Tractate Megillah in the Mishnah records the laws relating to Purim. The accompanying Tosafata and Gemara record additionally contextualized details such as Queen Vashti having been the daughter of Belshazzar, him of the feast and the writing of the wall, as well as details that accord with Josephus's, such as Esther having been of royal descent. Brief mention of Esther is made in Tractate Helin, and idolatry relating to the worship of Haman is discussed in Tractate Sanhedrin. Josephus recounts the origins of the Purim in Book 11 of his Antiquities of the Jews. He follows the Megillah Esther, which shows awareness of some of the additional material found in the Greek version, and provides a text for the king's letter. First religious ceremony which is ordained for the celebration of Purim is the reading of the Megillah Esther in the synagogue, a regulation which is ascribed to the Talmud, in the Talmud to the sages of the Great Assembly, of which Mordecai is reported to have been a member. Originally, this regulation was only supposed to be observed on the 14th of Adar. However, Rabbi Joshua ben Levi prescribed that the Megillah should also be read on the eve of Purim. Additionally, he obliged women to attend the reading of Megillah because women were also part of the miracle. The commentaries offer 2 reasons as to why women played a major role in the miracle. The first reason is that it was thought that a lady, Queen Esther, and through the lady, Queen Esther, that the miraculous deliverance of the Jews was accomplished. The second reason is that women were also threatened by the genocidal decree and were therefore equal beneficiaries of the miracle. When Haman's name is read out, which occurs 54 times during the public reading of the Megillah, the congregation engage in noise-making to blot out his name. The practice can be traced back to the Tosafists, in accordance with a passage in the Midrash, where the verse, "Thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek," occurs. Maimonides, in Hilchot Megillah, brings forward the idea that at the time of the Messiah, all holidays and festivals will be forgotten except Purim. The explanation for this is that all other festivals have their source in an act of sanctification. In Messianic times, there will be nothing man can do to add to the general atmosphere of sanctity. Purim, however, is a historic drama orchestrated by Hashem. So when we celebrate Purim, we learn to appreciate what Hashem has done for us. History, however, has a habit of coming back to bite you. Joseph Stalin was paralyzed on the 1st of March 1953, which corresponds to Purim in 1953, and died 4 days later. Due to Stalin's death, nationwide pogroms against the Jews throughout the Soviet Union were averted, as Stalin's infamous doctor's plot was halted. In 1991, Gulf War, during which Iraq launched 39 Scud missiles against Israel, it ended on Purim. Cave of the Patriarchs massacre took place during Purim in 1994. The Dizengoff Center suicide bombing took place on the eve of Purim, killing 13 on the 4th of March 1996. 2024, ahead of Purim, Israel's education ministry issued a directive to schools and kindergartens about avoiding panic-inducing costumes in view of the ongoing Israeli-Hamas war. Also, many places in Israel decided to cancel Purim events. There is a long-standing custom of drinking wine at the feast. The Talmud records that Rava said, "A person is obliged to become intoxicated on Purim until they cannot distinguish between blessed be Mordecai and cursed be Haman." Several interpretations arose among late medieval authorities, although in general the classical sources are unanimous in rejecting intoxicating excess. Only beginning with the Hasidic masters was drunkenness occasionally endorsed. Maimonides writes that one must drink wine until drunk and pass out from drink. According to one view, he is interpreting the Talmud this way: the sleeping person cannot distinguish one from the other, but according to another, he is intentionally contradicting it. Joseph Caro writes that one must never become drunk, as it is totally forbidden and leads to terrible sins. Rather, one must drink slightly more than usual, while Moses Isserles writes that one may drink more or less so long as the intent is pure, obviously referring to single malt whiskey. Michael Epstein suggests that until should be read exclusively, so that one is obliged to become drunk, but not so drunk that he cannot distinguish between Mordecai and Haman. L'chaim, Shabbat Shalom, and Purim Sameach. Thank you.
L'chaim.
Thank you, Morris. So you tried to get everything in about Purim, but I think now we'll have to move swiftly on to Kabbalat Shabbat, and I welcome Stuart to lead for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott Morris. That was very good. You did